with Business Development Institute. I would like to thank our speakers, Katie Richmond, Program Lead for Facebook Media Solutions, Matt Moran, Vice President of Product Development for SocialFlow, and Craig Pentland, Vice President Account Management for SocialFlow. I would also like to recognize our sponsor, SocialFlow, for making this event possible. And of course, a big thank you to you, our 750 plus attendees, for investing your valuable time with us today. We have a very simple agenda. The webinar will run for 45 minutes. The introduction presentation will be made by Craig Pentland of SocialFlow. After Craig, there will be an interview between Matt and Katie. The last portion of the webinar will be a moderated question and answer session with you, the audience. We strongly encourage your questions, so please submit them through the GoToWebinar platform. For those of you on Twitter, please use the hashtag #FBVideo. That's pound, F as in Frank, B as in boy, video, so we may all follow the conversation online. And of course, please post it on Facebook as well. The webinar is being recorded, and we will make the recording available for you after the event. So with that, let's begin. Craig?
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here. And also, too, thanks, Katie, for taking the time to join us as well. So yeah, what we're going to do to talk about today is really succeeding with video on Facebook. Obviously, if you're attending this webinar, you understand the significance of this and the importance of this. So we're going to spend some time, again, just discussing that, and then really digging into some subject matter experts. Again, Matt Moran, our VP of Product, and also Katie Richmond from Facebook. So thanks again, and let's dive right in. So this is really a compelling stat, and I think that this should come as really no surprise to everybody. But right now, Facebook is receiving 4 billion video views daily, and that's just a staggering number, particularly when you look at how quickly they've grown in such a short amount of time. So again, another compelling stat is in June 2004, so about a year ago, that number was just 1 billion. In January 2015, it was 3. But right now, currently, we're receiving 4 billion videos a day. 4 billion video views a day daily on Facebook, which again is just a truly staggering number. What we've got here is also some quotes from some very intelligent people, again, speaking to the significance of this and also to the tremendous scale that we're seeing. This first one, coming from a Digiday article, really talking about how Pop Sugar has seen those video views just drastically increase in such a short amount of time. The second one we see again is from Digiday. And also focusing on Time Inc. All right, so everyone knows that, again, Time Inc. is just a massive publisher, and just looking at the unique viewership over the past year, we're seeing an almost 80% increase over the past year, with average streams per viewer up to 233%. And video views are actually spending a lot of time on Facebook as well. So they're watching 27 minutes of video a month watching Time Inc. content. And again, that's just for one publisher. So again, we're starting to look at and really sort of like understand the scale and significance of this video now on Facebook. And then finally, the last quote again from a Digiday article talking about Uproxx, again, looking at 20 million video views across just 10 videos alone in April. Again, truly staggering numbers when we talk about how people are on Facebook digesting this content. And video.
Hey, Craig. Yeah, this is Matt Moran here. Just wanted to mention, we're seeing that from our side too. We can see the increase in Facebook video. So since we rolled out new Facebook API features at the F8 announcement, we've seen our video publishing double month over month.
Yeah, which is tremendous. Thanks, Matt. And not surprisingly too, obviously with the shift towards mobile, Facebook is taking a mobile-first approach to that. So again, in looking at some Facebook data from Q1, again, another staggering number, more than 75% of global videos are actually occurring on mobile. I'm sure everyone's been served these units, both organically and through paid media. But again, more than 75% of those views are actually occurring on people's mobile phones. So, as they're on the go, as they're, commuting, as they're, standing in the line waiting to check out somewhere, people are actually viewing these videos on their phones, and again, this is proving just a great place to deliver these videos, and again, have people take interest in them and actually go through and actually watch them. All right, and it makes sense, right? Because what we're able to do is we're able to drill down, and the CEO of Omnicom here referred to this as a marketing nirvana. And really what we're able to do is we're able to target these videos organically to people who we think are going to be interested in watching them, right? Which makes perfect sense. And then, as Matt had alluded to, we can also tie in the new features that are available through the API and even make this a more rich or just a better experience for these people who are digesting our content.
So that's one of the great things that Facebook's made available through the API is some pretty comprehensive organic targeting around the video.
Exactly right. So not just for paid anymore, it's also inclusive of organic. So what we'll do is we're going to dig into some of the cool stuff, right? So resumable uploads, right? So a feature that's available specifically, and Matt, obviously, feel free to jump in here, but a feature that's available through the API, which we're able to do now, is having the option of a resumable upload.
And with the types of news clients that we see who need, who are putting video after video up, just being able to feel secure that the video is going to make it has been a big step in allowing them to put more and more video up onto Facebook.
Yep, we all know how challenging that can be. So obviously this is a much more, as Matt had said, a more secure way to get your content up there and get it actually viewed. Next feature would be feature videos. Again, really, really great stuff. Something I think is really fascinating is you're able to actually set a takedown date for a video, right? So the post no longer has to live forever. You can have the capabilities to set a date for the video to actually come down off of Facebook. You're able either hide it or delete it.
Which is great because, whether it was true or not, a lot of people had a perception that when they put stuff up on Facebook that it was then owned by Facebook. So we had customers who didn't necessarily want to put the video there. But this shows that, if there are legal concerns around that or whatever, or ownership, you are able to set that takedown date and expire it either by having it deleted or hidden.
Yep. And Matt, one of the other things, this is Katie, that this is really interesting for is a lot of our media partners have licensing date ranges, right? So you have a sunset date for takedown across all platforms, and in the past that would mean fully deleting the Facebook video. With this new feature, it is fully deleted off of Facebook, but you're able to retain the insights. So later you can gather those back up and still take a look at your views, time spent, all of that.
That's awesome. I hope Katie jumps in on more of these because she's obviously going to know more about stuff.
I will. You did a good job, though.
Yeah, Katie, feel free to keep jumping in. That was really helpful. Yeah, and actually, Katie, that brings up a good point because our clients have asked about that and say, hey, if I take down a piece of content, if I take down a video in this instance, do I lose those stats? So it's great to hear from you too that people can actually go back and get those and continue to sort of like learn from them and iterate with their content, not just based off those insights that they're able to pull from that.
Right.
So thanks. Yeah. So another option too, which I think is really great, and something we hadn't seen yet, is the ability to publish Facebook these videos right to your page, and you're able to just actually bypass your news feed. So if you have users who jump right to your feed as sort of like an information source or as just for knowledge or information, they're able to actually go right to your page and see your videos live there, and not necessarily have to rely on that news feed experience.
And another option that I see as really valuable with this is, anytime you upload video anywhere, even with this kind of chunk uploading, there's going to be an encoding time. So say that you want to get a playlist or a list of a group of videos together for a series of episodes that are going to roll out on TV, and you want to do this in support. You could load all of those to the video tab of your page and then just share them out to your feed or schedule those to be published out to your feed as you want throughout a season, and allows you to kind of batch all that work up front.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say too is with like Facebook allowing embeddable video too, that's the nice thing is you can get those videos up into a place where you can reuse them in other places if you need to without cluttering the news feed of your users with each upload.
Yep.
Yeah, good point.
Also, the ability to backdate video creation date, something that's recently rolled out. I don't know if, Kate, if you have any more insights on that, but again, a really cool new feature. We're seeing clients already start to take advantage of this as well. Video thumbnails, obviously this is key, right? I mean, you're serving your video to your audience. You want this content to be as compelling as possible. The ability to actually go and select the video thumbnail to actually like curate that content and take an image that you think is going to resonate really well amongst your audience is crucial, and that's something that's now available.
And we're happy that that's available through the API. I would say as
Right.
small as the feature sounds, it's huge to customers, and I think that's what's led now even to people feeling comfortable, doubling their video uploads through us, is being able to set and have control over that thumbnail.
Yep.
Well, and that, the people using these features are smart then, because that initial image is really important, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about video best practices, but this custom thumbnail is a big piece of that.
Yep, great. And this is obviously key. I mean, this was something that was obviously not available. Again, talking about the idea of the sort of marketing nirvana, right, and reaching the people that you want to reach. You're now able to target, directly by interest, age, gender, and even geo-gate these videos. So something that wasn't available. Again, we're really sort of, getting your content to the individuals who it's going to be most interesting to, and you're able to specifically layer on this targeting criteria, which is a huge feature that our clients are super excited about.
Yeah, and one of the important parts about gating is, if you think of sports, for example, because I used to work at ESPN, I think of sports, and there are regional blackouts, right, for games or certain things. Say that you want to do kind of a second screen experience, you're clipping highlights of some sort, but you don't want that necessarily shown in an area where the game wouldn't be shown. Or if there are regional games, you could have specific videos targeted to specific areas. So there's a lot of, we haven't even delved into all the cases yet, but it's as much about who you want to see it as who you don't need to see it, who you don't want to bother.
Yeah, it's a great one. And again, Katie, this goes back to what you were just alluding to. I mean, video insights. Obviously, you're investing time in this content. You want to know how well it's performing. Through these video insights, we're able to, among other things, we're able to pull away the average time watched for the video, which we know is a very important KPI. And then also not only looking at the time watched, but obviously the complete views, right? So how many video views are actually being served, and people who are clicking on your video and then viewing them from start to finish. So these are new insights that are just now available, and something that we think is obviously crucial for clients moving forward.
Especially if you're just starting to publish video to Facebook, it can differ a lot from other platforms, and really looking at, for example, where you are retaining views and where they might be dropping off can give you a lot of hints as to length and what's working for your audience. So we really recommend taking a close look at all that.
Thanks, Katie. Great point as usual. And then the last cool bit of stuff we're going to mention here is video playlists. Really excited about this one too. Matt or Katie, I don't know if you have any more additional insights, but something that's been really well received so far amongst our customer base.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about discovery of, so kind of like we were talking about bypassing the feeds. So say that you publish 10 videos to a list around a show, say it's Scandal or something like that. You can roll them out to your feed alongside whatever publishing schedule that you want, but then as people are viewing that, there's going to be opportunities for them to dig deeper into your video library from there.
Cool, awesome, thanks, Katie. And then to wrap this up before we hand it off to our VIP, Katie, we'll just kind of go through a quick summary of what we just discussed. So obviously, again, and it speaks to the number of attendees that are on this webinar, the viewership of videos directly on Facebook is increasing dramatically. We're seeing this number go up really almost day by day, and just prove the importance of this new feature and then these new features, I should say, available through our API. Not surprisingly, too, we're seeing mobile leading the way. People are consuming video on Facebook on their mobile devices. Again, sticking with the trends we're seeing overall in the industry, that mobile is the way to serve this, and it's being really well received. Video on Facebook is being really well received. Something that I still think is just fascinating. The targeting capabilities and analytics that we're able to now offer directly through Facebook is really sort of second to none. And again, it's that idea of just like hitting that marketing nirvana, right? So just like hitting people that we know are going to be interested in your content with video, and then we know that they're going to receive it well, and then hopefully share it and continue to engage with your content overall. And again, sort of piggybacking off of that, the combination of audience demographics and behavioral data, it's just going to give you guys a lot of insights into your customers. And again, it helps you just like iterate and just create more compelling content that your customers or clients or audience will continue to engage with.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Great.
So this is Matt. I want to talk to Katie a little bit here in sort of an interview format, because I think it's good to go through the bullet points of the new features and what's there, but a lot of the stuff we're going to learn that's very interesting, I think, will just be from diving a little bit further into some of the stuff that's going on Facebook. From the social flow end, we're investing pretty heavily in the video. We believe in it. We're obviously, I mean, if you know what we do, we're very media, news, and publisher focused, and we've seen with a lot of our customers, they're really gearing up around around video as a way to keep people's attention, and capture that attention, drive referral traffic, or other goals that they have. So it's very important to us, and we see it as kind of the future of 2015 and 2016 for this year and next year. It's something super important that we need to have. So I'm actually really psyched that Katie's taken the time to talk to us today. And I'm just going to go through a couple questions with her here, and then we will move on to any questions that came in from the audience. So, Katie,
yeah.
what can you tell us a little bit about your perception on what's caused this growth in video consumption and why people are psyched about it for Facebook?
Yeah, definitely. So, there was a lot of, as usual, a lot of insights and kind of digging into this with actual users, and a lot of research that we've done over the past, let's say, year or so, and really leading up to this past F8 in April, looking into this exact question. And if I had to put it into one word, we've hit on like a dozen times already. It's mobile. Mobile video access by such a large number of users that are also Facebook users has just been huge. So, and I think digging into that a little bit, because it's easy to say mobile, but why mobile? We had three kind of main buckets that people told us, why they were watching video via mobile in general. And the first one was to relax, right? So, for example, I remember there was one use case that a woman said, she was a nurse, and she said, when we all have a break, we all crowd into one of the patient rooms and watch funny videos together. Okay, so that's totally a mobile fueled situation, because people are not in a position to take out a laptop in that amount of time. The second use case was catching up, and that's just sort of what did I miss during the day, and that's where you see a ton of views coming through shares, Facebook shares. So again, it's sort of the functionality of Facebook meets video, meets mobile, and people are catching up in lines. They're catching up in lines and commuting and all the places that we are doing the same thing. That's where that growth is coming from. And then finally, a good old connect, right? So people are watching videos of their friends and their families and sharing those too.
Just for my own personal curiosity, do you get any sense of difference between like length of video watched on mobile versus desktop, or any trends that the duration would have had in common as to what people were watching?
I don't have in front of me if there is a specific breakout between mobile and desktop, but I will tell you across Facebook, shorter is better, as you can imagine. As opposed to another destination where someone is literally going to a platform to watch video, the way people are discovering video on Facebook is really through their feed. So the video is coming to them in a lot of ways, and it may not be an ideal time if you think through the user, kind of where the user is at any given time. So that is enough time to squeeze in between a couple other things you're doing while you're on your mobile phone. Happens to be pretty short.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of interested in, because like from anecdotally, from our perspective, shorter is better. But you guys did just recently significantly up the size and duration of video that's allowed also.
Yeah,
so.
Well, and I think we haven't done, honestly, a lot of experimentation with longer form video yet. And there's no saying whether or not that wouldn't do well. It's just that we have the experience of these really short, buzzy videos being shared exponentially.
Cool. So then, as far as like what you're seeing as far as organizational video strategy, what are some of the ways that Facebook you think complements some of those strategies? Maybe even going into some of the best practices, et cetera, or ways in which people can help reach their goals using that video on Facebook.
Definitely. So, well, you hit right on the head the way that we look at video, Facebook video specifically, and that's that it's not meant to replace anything you're doing with video in other places. It's really meant to complement your overall video strategy and, I don't know, increase distribution and views across the surface where we know people are every day. So whereas you might have a native player where you have episodic video, maybe Facebook comes into your world as a 10-second short highlight clip or a single quote from your episode, and you can use the call to action hyperlink at the end of that video to drive back to your full form piece. That would be one example. I'm happy to go in. Do you want me to talk about best practices right now? Just a few?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like, I think that would be good because some of the questions sort of overlap here. So just as far as like that complementing your strategy and then what are the benefits? Yeah, so what are some of the ways to actually achieve those goals that you're seeing best practice-wise?
So some of the videos that we're seeing really do well. The biggest thing to consider about Facebook and how it differs from putting your video in other places is what we were just saying a second ago, and that's that people they're coming across your video on a mobile device 3 times out of 4, 75% of the time, and they're thumb scrolling, just like we do, right? So if you think about how you hold your phone and you scroll through your feed with your thumb, that dictates a lot of the best practices. So one, for example, is, we have autoplay enabled for the feed, and it's audio off. Okay, so those are 2 things. One would be, how do you leverage autoplay? One of the best cases, and we use this as an example for F8, so I love mentioning this, is Time Magazine had a great video that they featured and published where it looked like a Time Magazine cover. So it looked like an image, just an embedded image like you would see normally, that had a car right on the front of it. And once you paused on that video and it auto-played, about a second in, the car actually drove out of the Time Magazine frame and kind of off to the side. It would like drive off of your phone essentially. So thinking about video in different ways and some of the novel things that you can do when something just starts automatically like that.
That's interesting. That was the one thing that surprised me with what people were doing with the video is, I guess, when I first approached it, I was like, oh, it's going to be video. So for our news sites, it's going to be things like them taking their broadcast directly and putting it on there. And then I was sort of wondering, like, how would they go about that? Would there be politics? But then what we find is that, and I don't have a better metaphor for this, but it reminds me of like, it's almost like rather than an image, it's like an animated GIF in the sense that there's a lot more information that you can provide, but it will relate directly oftentimes to the thing that you want to take people towards.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of rethinking videos as we've come to know them as these long-form episodic audio experiences, and just thinking it's just a file format. So that might be a looping animated GIF. It could be, some of the videos that do it insanely well, BuzzFeed posts these recipe videos, and they are no audio, and it'll just show a white frame and a sandwich being made with Nutella and, bananas. And it's a 10-second video that loops over and over again. And that stuff is gangbusters. So thinking about audio off, I would say your video doesn't have to be audio off, but if you could, can you lay text over it? Can you make your comments below the video kind of express some of the audio? Those are things to consider.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I saw was, I think we actually used this in our example at F8, but I loved it, was BBC, when that eclipse had happened over Europe, just taking in the video, kind of like almost like maybe there was some, atmospheric sounds around it, but it was just videos that people had taken of the eclipse and different views that people had seen and shot with their cameras or their own cameras. And then basically, so you got a sense of what people had experienced when seeing it, but then to get more information on what was actually going on was the call to action to click through.
That's really smart. And I've been having this conversation a lot lately. People that have a lot of image files, but not a lot of video files or resources, why not daisy chain your photos, 5 to 10 photos that you already took for social platforms, whether it's the eclipse or something else, it's just a video slideshow of these photos that loops around, use your call to action at the end to drive to other things. And that kind of touches on like something else that we've seen that's real neat. The Economist is a good example, but think about graphics that you would show or data visualizations, but animated data visualizations. So how can you take something that when you scroll through it looks like a still image and bring it to life in the feed?
That's great. I like this idea that you were talking about daisy chaining the images too, because I think, you know, when a lot of people hear video too and video strategy, they think it's going to be, you know, sort of labor intensive and add more cost to their production, but you can use existing assets and still make something that looks really good. And I think, you know, the benefit in how much engagement and traffic it can increase towards your properties, you know, well outweighs that tiny amount of effort that you would need to put into it.
Yeah, I mean, think about just a video where the front slate says, you know, a day in the life or a day in the office, and it rolls through 5 or 6 photos, and you could do that every day and have there's a video, you know.
Yeah.
One of the other things, and this also relates back to the feed, is grabbing attention in the first few seconds. So where you might normally have a video that might crescendo 10 seconds into it, we're seeing a lot of success where people are jumping straight into action or using that thumbnail tool to have really your most dramatic moment portrayed as the image covering it.
Cool, cool. So yeah, I guess, you know, on to like, and you know, at any point where you touch on a best practice or a strategy, like feel free to jump back to it, because I'm sure that's one of the most interesting things for the people who are listening. But just from your perspective now in Media Solutions, you've been doing a lot of work with the Media Solutions partners. Could you talk through some of the, you know, what might be different, what they bring to the table, capability-wise or unique feature-wise, that can help, you know, complement people's experience with Facebook video natively?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and you kind of just said it, you know, with our Video Solutions partners bring to the table the ability to take our video API and really use all of these features we're talking about. All of those are going to be eventually coming to the platform natively. But if you think about, and I'll just use SocialFlow since we're talking about it now, how people are organizing or managing their social media workload, there's a lot of ingesting or getting everything into the system and then optimization and publishing out on a schedule. And in the past, one of the issues was that if you were publishing from a third party, you were either driving to another video with a link, or it wasn't that native video experience. The ability to do all of that kind of in the systems that you're already using as a social media director or manager, and then have that native experience is kind of a win-win, and we hope saves people time, because that's the world I came from. I was a social media strategy person at ESPN, and I have a ton of sympathy for how much work goes into all of this, especially with the amount of platforms people are managing and the distribution. So anything where we can corral that, our partners, A, are already working with a lot of media organizations, and B, are the only way we're going to scale some of these solutions. So
cool. So next question, I sort of want to morph a little bit, and I know, so Katie, not to catch you off guard, which I'm sure it won't, but because I know you deal a lot with, you know, obviously media companies. You're in the Media Solutions group, but you know, now that this video stuff's available, do you see any stuff coming in from brands where it might be used differently, or have you heard much where they're excited about it, like slightly differently than maybe the media companies are? And you know, if no is the answer, then you know, maybe talking a little bit about media companies and what the optimal user experience is around that sort of video for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what I'll say off the bat is that I don't think there's a real difference in strategy when it comes to what content is working or succeeding for a media company versus for someone who's managing a brand. As you guys know, good content is going to win. And so whatever the end goal of that content is, I think it's still going to be the case that, you know, you have a great stat that 53% of all the video views are coming from shares, okay? So one of the first things I thought when I saw some of these numbers when I was first starting here at Facebook was, oh, autoplay. Well, that's where all the views are coming from. But over half of those views are coming from people that watched and then shared the video. So the crucial point is you need to get that video shared. And everything's going to hit with a thud if it comes across as an ad in some way. The branding campaigns and content, if you think about someone like Red Bull, where it's really content first, is still driving such a strong brand message home that I think kind of all the best practices we talked about before will apply to brand side too.
Cool. So the last question I'm not going to really ask unless you had anything to add, because we kind of went through that. We talked a lot about a lot of the best practices that could save time, and also because of where we're getting to in the webinar. I mean, obviously, just stop me if there's a burning best practice that you wanted to get out. But otherwise, I was going to turn it back over to Steve, who's been looking at questions who have been coming in from the audience itself, and he was going to pick out some of those and see if he could get you to give some answers there.
He can get me to give some answers, so yes, that sounds good.
and thanks, Katie. Thanks, Katie, very much. Steve, are you there?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So yeah, we have a lot of great questions from the audience, so thank you everyone who's been submitting them. Let's just start at the top here. So the first question is from one of our audience members, Terry. And I think you touched on this a little bit, do video views count toward autoplay views greater than 3 seconds?
Yes, I think the question is, do autoplay views count as video views if they're over 3 seconds?
That's correct. Yeah. That would make sense. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. But yes, that is right. So as you're scrolling through the feed, and again, remember it's audio off, just that's a user experience thing to remember. When the user pauses for I believe 3 seconds, but you guys have that stat in front of you to confirm. That is counted as a view, but really goes back to the last stat that I was just saying floored me, which is that 53% of the overall video views are coming through shares. So yes, it counts as a view, but your even more valuable view a lot of times is getting that person to share, and then the subsequent kind of graph of view that comes out of that. That's really the strength of Facebook video, is all of the sharing that you get.
Great. Next question is from Angela. Why would you want to bypass newsfeed? Can you please clarify?
Yeah, so I touched on this briefly when we were talking earlier, but there might be a bunch of different reasons. What if you had a really large back catalog of video from another platform or from your own platform, and say that you had episodic highlights from 10 different TV series, and each series had 10 videos. You don't want all of that hitting your feed as you publish. So there's a feature through the API that you can bypass the feed, and then, as you know, anything that's already native to Facebook can be shared whenever you want. So then you could go back and schedule the post for any time you want, or share it when it's relevant. It kind of gets the encoding and upload process done on the front end, and then you can share as you need to.
Sammy wants you to answer this, true or false. The Facebook, which is always interesting.
I know, right? My third dare.
The Facebook algorithm punishes a page for pre-programming content versus posting live.
No, that's false. The way that the API works and any kind of scheduling, when it's published to the platform, it's as if you were publishing it that minute. So there's no knock for any kind of scheduling that you do against a post, as long as it's native. It has to be native to the Facebook platform. So it has to be a post on Facebook, a video on Facebook, a photo on Facebook, etc.
Rebecca asks, is there a way to track statistics by time period? For example, monthly statistics rather than by just video?
The answer is yes, and I'm not looking at the video insights in front of me right now, but you can step back from your larger, kind of like if in the past you've been used to using post stats versus photo versus video, you can step back from your video as a whole and see things like what time of day you're doing best with, and what videos specifically where people are breaking off. So you're able to drill into the video or step back and look at video as a category.
Lauren wants to know, does Facebook have any benchmarks for brands to measure against for video insights?
So I'm thinking that means how many views is good type of thing. The answer is no. It's really all relative to the size of your audience versus some overall view count. I'd say that we can dig in further on some of that, but we really need to look at specific use cases. You know, some of the benchmarks, I guess, that are more general would be length. We're seeing shorter videos do a lot better in general. Self-explanatory audio off videos are doing a lot better, but views are really specific to what type of video it is, what your category is, how many people you have following your page, etc.
Brian asks, can you define, and you may have touched on this, can you define what constitutes a view on Facebook? Example, videos that silently autoplay as you're scrolling through your feed count as a view?
Yes, so, and yeah, we touched on that before, but it's not just any video you scroll past. I don't know if you've noticed, or if you have your phone in front of you and open up the Facebook app and go through your feed, you can completely just bypass a video as it was any other post type. It's not until you stop on it that the autoplay kicks in. So our engineers spent a long time researching and doing a lot of user testing to figure out what we consider the most optimal experience. And right now, that between that and the share graph that you get off of those videos, you know, those kind of, that's the exponential growth. So you're not driving everyone back to one post to view. It's everyone else's post where they're sharing that video object that really make the difference.
Sticking with the autoplay theme, Justin wants to know how heavily has autoplay contributed to the increase in views?
I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know if I have that stat in front of me. And again, it's like the third time I'm saying this, I know, but the sharing of videos contributes more than the initial view. It's 55% is through the share. So if anything, I'd say getting people to watch through autoplay as they're on mobile devices without audio probably catches people's interest, but then you need to also encourage the sharing, and that's where the content creators come in.
Jennifer asks, what's the ideal length of time for Facebook video?
You know, this isn't an exact science. I've heard everything from as short as 10 seconds to about a minute. I think a lot of that, though, has to do with that's what we know to have worked really well in the past. As we get more and more, as video scales in general, we've all seen things, so many things change with the digital video landscape. You know, think about something like Netflix or all of these things we didn't think could be done. I would never try to predict the future on how that's going to roll out. So I don't think we're, you know, I think we encourage lots of experimentation with longer form too.
Hey, Katie, this is Matt. I mean, it is anecdotal, but it's a funny thing. You know, you often get questions about this, like, what's the ideal length of this or the ideal length that something should be to facilitate like the most views or the most engagement, etc. It's just that it's got to be interesting through the whole thing. So if it's like the best 10 seconds ever, that's great. If it's an amazing minute of interesting content, then that's the ideal length for it. You know, and obviously there's probably an upper limit to that stuff, but as long as, you know, you're keeping the video something that someone would want to pay attention to, or at least the people that you're targeting, you know, that's what I'd focus on probably more than the exact length itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And say that you have a live event that some people might not be watching or tuned into. You can imagine how even clipping something longer from that would still be interesting to a large number of people, say around the elections or something.
Yep.
Sticking with the predicting the future theme, Rob wants you to look into your crystal ball and answer, is Facebook developing a live video option?
So right now it's not roadmapped. I'd say that all video is really interesting to us, and it's a question that we get asked a lot, and we work with a lot of partners that do streaming. Our first priority right now is getting video right, period, before we move into kind of next phase, and a lot of, since April, has been working closely with our media solutions partners and some of our leaders who have started working with these APIs to make sure that all the features work. So we really, you know, as Facebook has always been, it's really all about the people who are using the platform first and their experience before we move on to anything else. So I'd say yes, it's something that's talked about, but we don't have any, there's no more information on right now.
Rod asks, what's a healthy click-to-play rate percentage or ratio for video in your opinion?
Oh gosh, I really can't answer that one, and I'm sorry. Maybe there's some more information we can find and put up after this, but I'm definitely not qualified to answer that one.
Yeah, we don't have that right in front of us either, so but we could certainly look at if that's something we could include when we send out info on this stuff. We could probably pull something like that from our end as well.
And I completely get it, having done all of this too, is you're really looking for ways to gauge success, especially when you're delving into a new area or a new platform or a new combination of things. So a lot of this is really new as far as large-scale engagement around video goes, and honestly, all of you are going to define what success looks like. So we're really looking for innovators, people doing new things, prove the stats wrong about long-form video. It's so new that I don't think anything's impossible right now.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, from my perspective, that's, it's interesting because, you ask those questions, but you need to step back and say, like, what are the goals of your organization itself? And then because the video, it's been there, but it's still relatively new in the scheme of things. If I'm looking as a publisher for referral traffic, or I'm looking at for a brand for awareness or engagement around that to know that people are aware of what I'm putting out there, then I'm going to start to experiment with the videos that I put out and see, with the call to action and the form video that I put in, the information that's there, is more referral traffic coming in. And then the other thing is I'm going to begin to put video in over and over and pay attention to the trends. So I want to see, obviously what's going up and down, what does that click-to-play ratio actually look like, and if there's a higher or lower click-to-play ratio compared to reach or, whatever else, is that something that's in line with my goals, as a company and what my revenue models are and how I use Facebook to achieve those.
Yeah, and you know what, Matt? I mean, that brings up an interesting point, too. Often when we first start talking about video, I think a lot of media companies and brands think it's an all-or-nothing proposal. Put your video up, and that means it's not on your site anymore. One of the cases, the sort of near-live case that I think is really helpful is driving referral traffic or click for tune-in. So you can imagine if you are streaming a half-hour, an hour-long event natively on your site, you could clip off maybe just a quote, kind of think like a TED Talk style quote that encompasses things as a video, publish that video to Facebook, and it could be 10 seconds long, and your end call to action, which links back through, is we're live now, catch the rest of it now, and you can drive back to your home for that. Because here's another really good stat. Videos are shared 14 times more than photos on Facebook and 6 times more than links. So if you're going to do a call to action to drive back to another destination, you might as well make that a video call to action and use that click through at the end.
That's interesting.
Yep.
Gabrielle asks a couple related questions. Do you see a real increase of engagement? Call to action is always at the end of a video on the desktop. However, on mobile, it's at the top left during the whole video, which is more user-friendly. Could we imagine that the call to action will display differently, not only on the end, on the desktop?
I think we can imagine it. Not being the video product lead, I really can't speak to it, but it's definitely a point of feedback that we've heard repeatedly come through. And I'll tell you, Facebook having, being all of 6 months here now, having been at a more traditional media company before, Facebook is really mobile first. So nothing is being approved that comes in and it's desktop and tagging mobile on. It's really almost sometimes all about mobile, and then desktop follows a little bit. So, both are really important, and I think we're taking best practices from both platforms and trying to spread them across. But when we're looking at this 75% view from mobile, that's going to come first for this stuff right now.
It's interesting. One thing you kind of keep touching on, although sort of tangential, is just that, a lot of people sometimes, the media companies or someone else will think about, oh, well, what's Facebook doing, putting this in the news feed? Their first rush to judgment is that it's going to negatively impact users, et cetera. But the two things that I think people don't realize is the amount of obsession that goes into testing the news feed, because it's like one of the most, obviously, probably the single most important thing for Facebook's success is keeping people interested in there. So putting in things that drive people away or that aren't palatable to people is something that Facebook just won't do. And I think that comes all the way from the top. And then also, especially for the media people out there who might be on this call, the thing I find comforting and reassuring too is on the Media Solutions team, like you talk about, you came out of ESPN and have the media background, and the Media Solutions team at Facebook is heavily saturated with people who came out of traditional media with heavy experience in digital. So definitely understand the pain and what makes people feel successful, et cetera, of the media companies who are trying to achieve success on Facebook.
Yeah, it's been interesting for me actually coming from the position of the content side and all this distribution and publishing now, which by the time I left, I felt like the job was less about social media in quotes and more just about content distribution, to coming over to a platform-based company where, exactly like you said, Matt, the newsfeed is everything and user experience on the platform is everything, and nothing gets done if they think it's going to be major disruption or cause people to leave, in any kind of permanent way. So I think sometimes, I'm sitting between the two sides and acting as a bit of a translator and making sure that the media and brand side is heard here too internally, like a lot of us are.
So we have time to squeeze in one more question, and it's from Julianne. You mentioned Facebook video should complement overall video strategy. What are the benefits you are seeing to uploading to the Facebook player versus an organization's native player that plays in line?
Sure. Well, some of this is really technical, and some of it has to do with the Facebook algorithm. But video is really, when we're looking at what's valued as shared, native Facebook video has in the past been, kind of the most difficult to create, and so, was kind of sharing video is going to get you more engagement than really sharing any other type of content. When you share a video from either a third-party player or that it is a link to drive back through, that's still going to be great. If you get engagement, it's all going to be upside for you, but Facebook, the platform, sees that as an object that's being shared, not as a video. The video has to be native for it to kind of be seen as a video with a capital V within the Facebook platform. So some of it is just really all about the Facebook algorithm and the value that the algorithm places on video content.
Yeah, from my perspective, it would depend on what the player was too. I mean, some things play in feed, and Facebook, accommodates that, obviously for a lot of the larger other video formats. But if it's a proprietary player that your company has, obviously the benefits are, right off the bat are just exactly in line with what Katie said. It's probably not going to play in feed. It's going to be treated as an object, and then because people can't see it right in feed, they're going to be less likely to share that content than something that's immediately funny right in the feed where their eyeballs are there.
You also only get the benefit of autoplay with native Facebook video, and that's huge for views.
Yeah, the autoplay aspect.
So having worked somewhere where the native player was number one and that was pretty much our only source, to me I see a big win-win in having a really short feed-friendly clip that drives through to your native experience. Then you get a little bit of both. It's a little bit of extra work, but if you're really talking about clipping in and out and cutting off a piece of video and uploading it, I think it would be worth the time to at least test that out.
And that is all the time we have. So I would like to again thank our speakers, Katie Richmond, Program Lead, Facebook Media Solutions, Matt Moran, Vice President of Product Development for Social Flow, and Craig Pentland, Vice President of Account Management for Social Flow. Of course, thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. Just another reminder, the webinar will be available on demand. We'll be sending that link out to everyone who registered. And thanks again for spending your valuable time with us. We hope you found the program worthwhile. Have a good afternoon.